Hello, thank you for joining us. My name is Doug Sharp, and I will be your host today on the National Leadership Briefing. It is good to be with you. Here we are in October. My, how time flies. I am so excited about today's briefing, though, because we have an awful lot to cover. Let's get straight into it. Let me just do a quick review as to what we're going to be covering here today. First of all, as we promised during the midweek touch points, as you know, we get together for the National Leadership Briefing once a month, but we send out midweek each week updates so that we can just quickly touch base and make sure we're all on the same page as we track through the month. Well, on the previous midweek touch points, I alluded or kind of gave you hints as to what we were going to talk about today. Well, remember one thing I said today, it's all about you. We are focusing entirely on you today. And the reason for that is because you are a center of influence and a very important part of the plan that we are executing here on the National Leadership Briefing. So first, we are going to be talking about you as a priority today. The second thing we're going to be talking about is something that is a kind of a problem, but it's a great problem to have, and that is that following the most recent plan that we executed here on the National Leadership Briefing, working alongside citizen action organizations from across the nation, working alongside ministry leaders, Christian leaders, people in the faith communities, we now have the problem of having thousands, tens of thousands of new Canadians in the faith community that are now mobilized into the realm of politics and a desire to serve in government, and they are excited. They have exercised their combined influence just recently as part of the Conservative Party of Canada leadership election race, and they have come to this new awareness of the fact that we can all come together. We really can all come together, and we can have a voice, and we can be heard and make a difference. And so we are excited about that, but we have a problem because there's all these new people that have never, ever really participated before in this way, and they are looking for assistance and guidance and mentorship and coaching as to what those opportunities might be on the road ahead. So as I again alluded to on previous midweek touch points, we have an exciting announcement and a launch today of the brand new training modules that we are going to be using for launching citizen action groups all across Canada in churches where there are people who are called to serve in this realm of politics and civil government. So we are excited about launching that today. And so we're going to be going over to the boardroom and we're going to be doing it there and releasing the very first training module. So this is how we're going to be doing it. We're going to have training modules that are going to be announced every single National Leadership Briefing from here on in. So every single month, you are going to learn just a little bit more about the most effective way to build and operate a citizen action group as a ministry within your own church. And that is so you can serve your church family, your pastor, and your community. So that's another thing we're going to be talking about today, that real good problem to have. All these people that are looking for coaching and mentorship. What a great problem. Okay, now the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be launching also something brand new. It's a new segment here on the National Leadership Briefing, and it's called Answer Period. And thank you for letting me tease you on the last midweek touch point just by mentioning the name of Answer Period. But today you're going to find out all about Answer Period when I return from the boardroom and come back to the desk here. And I'm going to tell you all about it and tell you about the exciting opportunity that you're going to have ahead to actually get answers to a lot of your questions that are left unanswered out there on that political and governmental landscape. So excited to share that with you today. But also, we always do this. We want to make sure that we start with talking about the four pillars, the things that we rally around here on the National Leadership Briefing, the principles, the things that we have in common, and the views and values that we share. Now, I'm going to do a little bit differently here today because instead of going through the four pillar story, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to include in the post-briefing notes today, I'm going to include the four pillar story link. On the National Leadership Briefing website, there is a link that tells you exactly where the four pillars came from, these principles, these things that we rally around, where they came from, why they're there, the whole thing. But I want to ask you a question here, kind of present it to you a little bit differently as we're talking here on the briefing today right now. What I want to do is I want to ask you a few questions about people that might be in your orbit or in your church family or perhaps they're ministry leaders that you know of in other churches or people in your community. Let me just ask you these questions. Do you have people in your orbit, anywhere in your sphere of influence, anywhere close to you that might have an interest in providing for the safety and security of vulnerable people within your community? Is that something that's important to them? Do you have shut-in elderly? Perhaps are there homeless in your community? Do you have people that are drug addicted? Do you have young children that perhaps are not getting the adequate food provided for them daily? These vulnerable people within your community, I'm asking you if you know of anybody that has a heart for people in your community that are in those vulnerable places, or do you have people that you know of that are vulnerable within your community? What about people around you that might be concerned about the freedom of religion? Do you know of anybody that has any concerns about what they're seeing happen right now on the political landscape here in Canada about the attacks and assaults on what our right of belief as people of faith in Canada? I want you to think about this for a second here, because these are the people that we think about when we come together on the National Leadership Briefing. So often people come to the briefing and they go, okay, I'm ready to receive, I'm ready to feed me, feed me, feed me. But we got to remember one thing here, is that the reason we come together and rally around the 4 pillars is not just because it's for us, it's because it's for other people that are in our communities. So what are the 4 pillars? First of all, we rally around the common belief that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. So do you know anybody, any parents in your church family or in your community that are concerned that government is imposing their authority on their authority as parents and attempting to raise their children in a way that's contradictory to their views and values? Well, if you do, then you come on the National Leadership Briefing every month, not just for you, but you come on the National Leadership Briefing for them as well. Because what we do here is, when it comes to the first pillar, is we constantly look for opportunities where we can advance that principle and support that principle in society, culture, politics, and government. So parents, if you have parents that have these concerns, we're here for them. Now, you could do them a huge favor by inviting them on the National Leadership Briefing and joining us for the next National Leadership Briefing, because that is going to be one of the focuses that we're going to be focusing on in November. Now, that's the first pillar. Parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. The second thing that we rally around here on the National Leadership Briefing is a pillar that says that those we choose to serve us, we actually elect to serve us in political processes, those people must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Now, that is a really important point right now for us to be rallying around, because we have elections that are right now happening in British Columbia as an example, but we also have a federal election looming on the horizon as well. Now, it may not come in the fall, but it's certainly going to come in the spring, or it's going to come very soon. And we want to make sure that we're ready to look square in the eyes of those that are offering to serve us and say to them, make sure we're asking the question, will you respect and defend my right of belief and freedom of religion? If you will, then you are an eligible choice for me during the election coming up. So that's the second pillar that we rally around. Again, it's not just for us, it's for the people around us that also share our views and values in that area. Now, what's the third pillar that we rally around here on the National Leadership Briefing? Well, we make sure that the laws and policies of civil government, the laws and policies that are enacted and passed by governments, we want those laws and policies to provide for the safety and security of the citizen, but especially we want protections for the vulnerable. And we just talked about that. Do you have vulnerable people that live in your communities? Do you have a heart for vulnerable people? Do you know people who have a heart for vulnerable people? Well, that is one of the things that we focus on here on the National Leadership Briefing, is scanning the horizon for any opportunity where we can support and enact policies and laws and pass laws that provide for the safety of vulnerable people. So that's the third pillar that we rally around here on the National Leadership Briefing. And finally, the fourth pillar, oh my goodness, what a great pillar these days to stand up for, and that is fiscal responsibility. We believe here on the National Leadership Briefing that it is inappropriate for civil government to continue to heap debt on the backs of our children and future generations. I am telling you right now that right now in Canada, we have to turn a corner. We are going far too far down the path of big unsustainable debt that is being piled onto the backs of future generations of Canadians. We have a 17% debt to GDP ratio right now. We have in Canada right now, our federal government is running a $343 billion debt, fiscal debt there this year. This is this year alone. Now, those are big numbers. You know what? They oftentimes, the bigger the number, the harder it is to understand how it might impact our lives because it just isn't relatable. Well, let me put it this way. The kind of money that we're talking about the federal government spending right now will not be paid for in your lifetime. So as long as if your eyeballs are on this screen right now, then we're talking about a federal debt and we're talking about a debt in Canada of over $1 trillion that will be paid off in the future of our children's lives, not our lives. So I just want you to know this is a big challenge for us on the road ahead, but it's time to turn the corner, and we're going to talk about a solution or a part of the solution as we go over the boardroom a little later on as well, and how you, and remember, we're talking about you today, how you can be a part of that solution. So the 4 pillars, really quickly again: first, that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. Second, that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Number 3, that the laws and policies that civil government passes must provide for the safety and security of the citizen, especially the vulnerable that live among us in our communities. And number 4, that it is inappropriate for civil government to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. So if you agree with those things and your views and values are in line with those things, then you're in the right place here on the National Leadership Briefing. The only thing that we could have done more to support that is if you brought more people along with you today. But you know what? That's November. You can always grab all your friends and have them rally around those principles with us in the November National Leadership Briefing. Hey, you can't blame me for promoting the ongoing growth of this. We have this real momentum growing here. For the first time, we've got this big curve starting to spin up like this, and we've seen our influence grow substantially over these last few months. So I'm saying let's keep pouring more and more gas on that fire and bring more and more people together and rally around these things that we all share in common. So that is the 4-pillar review that I want to share with you today, is just touch on it, just to remind you why we're here and the importance of your participation in that. And again, remind you that you will be receiving the 4-pillar story. It's a transcript of the story of where the 4 pillars came from, because I always want you to know that part of it. They came from you. They came from a series of surveys that went out across Canada starting back in the fall of 2016. We asked you what you thought was important, and that's what you came up with. So that's what we stand behind, and that's what we rally around here on the National Leadership Briefing. So great, let's leave it there for now. And as I told you, we've got to go over and we want to get into the boardroom right away because it's a big day today. We got lots to cover. And that board, remember, we're going to be dedicating all that time to you. So you don't want to miss this. All right, we'll see you over there. Watch this quick video and we'll catch up to you over in the boardroom. Bye for now. These are the things that we believe in. First, that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. Second, that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Number 3, that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us. And number 4, that it is inappropriate to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. They came from you. They're your pillars. Okay, it's good to be back with you in the boardroom here. Let's get started right away. As I promised at the desk, it's all about you today. It is all about you today. And there you are, right there. You are right there on the board, and we're going to just stay focused squarely on you because there is so much you can do and so much authority you have, and we want to make sure it's crystal clear as to where you are positioned in the overall plan that we're executing together, you and I, and all of us together on the National Leadership Briefing. So let's take a look here at you right here. Now, first of all, it's important to know where we stand as individuals in society, and especially when we have the opportunities to influence public policy and influence the decisions of civil government. Now, you've heard me say this before, that civil government, which is established by processes that are political, has the power to make decisions that are going to impact the lives of our neighbor in either a positive or a negative way. Now, I'm going to say that again because it's important. Civil government, which is established by processes that are political, has the power to make decisions that are going to impact the lives of our neighbor in either a positive or a negative way. And that is another big reason about why we're here. We're here for the other. We're here for our neighbor. We're called to care about our neighbor. We can't just put our ears in our fingers in our ears and pretend it's not happening. We see it all the time. The decisions of civil government having a negative impact on the health and well-being of our neighbor. So if we citizens, you have an opportunity to actually influence those decisions and make the lives of our neighbor better, then we're all over that. And you know what? I'm not talking about dragging you away from where you are onto some other sphere, into some other sphere, or into some other place where you have no anointing or protection or authority. I'm talking about you staying exactly where you are, serving exactly the call that you know you're supposed to be serving, but using the authorities that you already possess and not taking a whole bunch of your time and having a massive amount of influence on these decisions of civil government that will impact the lives of our neighbor, like I say, in either a positive or a negative way. So let's take a look first then and remind you about some of the authorities that you already possess. You do not have to go out and acquire these or hone these. They're not like skills where you have to like work out and get really good at anything. It's you already possess them. First of all, the first authority that you already possess is you have authority as a citizen of the nation of Canada. Now, if you're wondering about what it is that your authorities are, then I am going to be sending you a link to a website that's going to give you, just kind of remind you about all the things that you can do as a citizen of Canada. Everything from getting a passport, serving in the military, voting at election time. I mean, all of these things are available to you. And because we possess this authority already, it's not appropriate for us when it comes time for us to exercise that authority that we actually just let that opportunity slide by, especially when we have such critical decisions being made right now by our governments. If we have an opportunity to put in place government leaders that are going to make better decisions than we possess the authority to help decide who they are, then I think as citizens, we need to stand up and do that. Now, what is the second authority that we already possess? Well, we already possess something called constituent authority. Now, the reason I know that you have constituent authority is because if you're watching this video, there's a really good chance that you live in Canada. And just by virtue of the fact that you live in Canada somewhere, you have a postal code. Actually, and this is kind of the test to know if you have a constituent authority or not. If you have a postal code at the place that you reside, then that means that you live within something called an electoral district. Now, if you take a look at this map here of Canada over here, this map is actually divided up into all of the different electoral districts in Canada. There's 338 of them, and you live somewhere. You definitely live somewhere. And because you live within the boundaries of this electoral district, and we live in a country that has something that is representative government, it's a representative form of government, you have authority as a constituent to speak to your representative about the things that are important to you. Now, of course, here on the National Leadership Briefing, we're all really clear on the things that are important to us: parental authority, respect for and defense of our personal freedoms and our right of belief, the protection of the vulnerable, and our desire to not see our kids buried in debt. So those things we can, as constituents, with the authority we already possess, we can actually speak to our local representatives in government. Now, the good thing about the National Leadership Briefing and the fact that you're here is that we can do that all together. So as much as you might think that you don't have a lot of that constituent authority, well, you know what? You're tied in with a whole bunch of people from all across the nation, and together we use our combined influence when we speak to government leaders, so you can walk in there confidently and politely. Remember, we never ever have we never encourage anyone to bang their fist on the table. Just be real polite and just say, you know, this is something I got a concern about, and I'd like to share it with you. I'd just like to see you stand up for my right of belief and freedom of religion. And so that is something you can comfortably do, knowing that we're doing the same thing all across the nation. So that is your role and your authority as a constituent living within an electoral district somewhere here in Canada. So congratulations, you also got that authority. Now, kingdom authority, that is something, and you've heard me say this before if you've been on the briefing before, I don't comment on kingdom authority. Now, I could, if I was standing at a pulpit in a church, I would in a heartbeat. But what I always say is, I challenge the pastors on this one here, is that every person that's sitting in your pews, every person that you encounter, you know, within the faith community that you serve, you know that they possess something called kingdom authority. And you have a key opportunity to teach them about that authority and how they can wield it at election time, and how they can wield it within their community as they tackle the challenges that might exist within your local community. And you have a plan on how to teach that, and you have a plan on how to share that information. So I'm going to leave it to you to continue to do that. But remember, you have kingdom authority as well. Now, the last authority that I have here, it's actually kind of an interesting form of authority there. That PP there stands for political party authority. And what makes that authority so unique is that it's the only authority that's optional. You actually possess all those other authorities, but the last one is optional. You don't have it unless you decide you want it and you want to exercise this authority. Then what you do is you join a political party. Political party authority comes when you make the decision to pull $15 out of your pocket. I think that's kind of the average price of a political party membership. And you say to yourself, look, I want to purchase some extra authority so that I can advance the things that I believe in into society, culture, politics, and government. And if political parties are going to have conversations about the care of our neighbor, I'm going to pull my 15 bucks out, and I'm actually going to be at every table having every conversation I can. Now, there's lots of ways that you can do that without taking a whole bunch of your time, but that's what we teach you on the National Leadership Briefing. Let me give you an example. Right now, there are policy conventions that are being planned in all the political parties on the road ahead. You're going to see policy conventions coming up, and you can speak into that process very easily, but you need to possess a membership in the party that's having the policy convention. So for $15, if they all of a sudden want to have a conversation about expanding the eligibility of euthanasia to include children and the mentally ill, I'm going to spend the money. If they're going to be talking about how we care for our shut-in elderly or our drug-addicted people, folks in our communities, I am definitely going to be there for that. If all it costs me is 15 bucks to have a say, I'm definitely going to be there. Another thing that we get to do when we have political party authority that we purchase optionally is, very key thing is that we get to decide who the candidate is that's going to be in our local riding. So if we have one of these electoral districts here and we've got an election coming up, which we do, all of the parties right now are looking for candidates to run in the election. Well, if I'm a member of a political party, I can actually vote and say, I like this candidate over this candidate because this candidate shares my views and values, the 4 pillars, and this candidate is willing to advance them into the conversations that take place in the House of Commons. Another candidate might not be as excited about participating in that, so we have an opportunity to choose who best represents our views and values. Now, so those are the authorities that you possess and have the option to purchase more of, or additional authority that you can purchase when it comes to political party authority. Now, before I move off of your authorities, you might notice this arrow here pointing up above here, right? I want just to remind you is that as you wield all of these authorities, that it is for us as members of the faith communities of Canada, as we wield these authorities, we want to make sure that we are aligned with the will of God in our lives. We're members of the faith community. We're Christians, and we have specific beliefs about our Christian faith. And that arrow pointing up is to remind us that my goal is to align myself with the views that the Father has over our lives and in our lives and in our communities. So that's what we want to do, is we want to position ourselves in alignment with his views. And then as we use our authorities, we will not stray. Now, this arrow is also a good way to remember, too, the roles and responsibilities of church leadership and pastors. If we have pastors that are on, or leaders on, the National Leadership Briefing today, I got to tell you, I'm encouraging you, and I'm just asking you, please, if you ever thought that you did not have a role in assisting people in exercising the authorities that they possess to impact public policy and government in the country, I can tell you that we need you. You cannot, please don't think that you don't play a role, because as we as citizens take our authorities and try and align them with God's view, you're the ones that are going to be helping us to tack in the right direction and make sure that we remain positioned correctly by what you teach us ongoingly. So if all of a sudden they're going to have this conversation, like I say, about euthanasia or abortion or all of these really hot button issues, and we want to be aligned with the Father's heart and views on these issues, then you can help us by teaching on those subjects and on those issues, as to help us to understand God's view on this. So please, this is where you can help us, is to keep us aligned right there. So thanks so much for all you're doing there. And also, again, don't forget, Kingdom Authority. If I've got some authority and you understand that authority and you can teach it to us, please do it. Do it every Sunday if you can, a little bit anyway. Okay, so that's you. And remember, I promised you, we're going to talk all about you today. So that's where your position in alignment with God, with authorities that you can exercise. And of course, I remind you, we're going to do it together so that you even have more authority than you might think. The second thing that I want to talk about is your personal network. The best way, I just want to remind you about this, the best way that you can increase your influence and advance these principles that we're talking about here on the National Leadership Briefing is for you to understand your place as a center of influence within your personal network. You have people all around you. We talked about it back at the desk, that share your views and values, that have your heart for the vulnerable, that care about the future of our children, that want their right of belief protected, that want parents to have their authority respected by governments. These people are all around you, and you can align yourself with them by reaching out to them and saying, look, these are some of the things that I believe, and I wanted to know if you would be willing to work with me on advancing these ideas. These are important to you, and I believe, you've got your kids play with my kids, your family sits beside my family at church, your church is in the same network as my church. All of these things we share in common. What if we all put our minds to, just kind of looking for opportunities where we could advance the things that we believe in together into these spheres? Well, that's your personal network. And I just want to encourage you is that you can bring them together, rally them around the things that are of interest to you locally, and you can advance the things that are important to you in your local community. So developing that personal network is super important. Now, I'm going to include in today's post-briefing notes something called the Personal Network Survey. We've shared it before, but it's just 4 simple questions that you can ask other people to see if they share your views and values when it comes to these issues that we talk about here on the briefing. And if they do, then you can invite them to join you and to advance these things locally. So that's your personal network. Now, this next part is very, very exciting, because I told you we're going to talk about this today, is that we have this real big problem. We have this real big problem in Canada right now, because we've got all these new people that are mobilized into the sphere of politics and civil government, and they're excited, like I say, about the fact that they have authorities that they can exercise and that they can use to influence the decisions of civil government on the things that are important to us, our neighbors' well-being. So this citizen action group that I'm talking about, that we're going to talk about here right now, is a tool that you can use to help you, and it's kind of structure around you to help you, to train you up to actually hone your skills and actually help your local church to look for these opportunities where you can work together and how you can work together to advance the things that you believe in. Well, okay, now let me just tell you, the Citizen Action Group was introduced back in 2019 on the National Leadership Briefing when we did something called a Citizen Spotlight segment on a church here in Canada that had adopted our training here on the National Leadership Briefing and established a citizen action group within their church. And so when I shone that light, that citizen spotlight, we called it, on that church back then, they were really just getting their wheels turning. They were really starting to see what was happening. Well, we have in Canada now a church, and actually there are other churches probably, but we're just going to shine a light on this one. But this particular church has really been successful in how they've put their citizen action group together, and it is functioning very well and having great impact, not only on their local church family, but also in their community and in their region. So what I want to do here is I want to introduce you to them today. I am so excited because this is the first introductory training segment and the first module for citizen action group training that we're going to be doing here on the National Leadership Briefing. And what it is my opportunity to shine a light and introduce you to something that's proven to be very successful, and some people who have done what they have done, building their citizen action group in their church with the most beautiful heart, the most well-directed intentions, the best of the best of information, and they have really done it in a very, very high level of professionalism and leadership. Now, I'm not telling you that it was perfect, the road getting there, because they're the first ones that are going to admit that it was really kind of a rocky road, but they have walked that road ahead of us, and they have tripped over the rocks that they didn't see, and are willing to help us avoid some of the pitfalls and some of the challenges that they had by sharing their experience today. So I am excited today. Please join me in watching this video, and let me introduce you to these wonderful people who have built a successful citizen action group that's having great impact in their communities. Please take it away. We'll just start the video right away, and we'll come back here in a second to talk more.
I became aware, just in my prayer time, this thing started to come up about what was happening in the nation, primarily what I'd been reading about what was happening in the education system, the curriculum that was being introduced to grade school children and even preschool children. And I thought, I have to do something, but I'm a pastor. I'm not a politician. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an educator. And I thought, well, what can I do? And so I started to try and do a little bit more research. I was sitting there one morning and I said, God, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to do all this. I can't keep up with this. And I felt like the impression that came to me was, there's a remnant of people in your church who have a heart to do this kind of thing. You need to find them. And so I just said, okay, I trust that there's people here that will have this on their heart. So I got up that Sunday morning, just a few days later, and I said, we're going to have a meeting next Sunday night for those of you who have an interest or a heart for social justice issues. Then I got up again the next Sunday and said, tonight we're having a meeting. And it was totally, I had no idea how many people were going to show up.
But he knew he couldn't do it alone. Just the sheer size of everything that's happening, whether you're looking at the municipal level, provincial level, federal level, there's just so much going on. So he knew he needed help, but he didn't know what that was going to look like. So he just gave us a call. I felt a tug on my heart.
You know, our church has 500 people and 20 people came. I said, you guys, I don't have an agenda. What I have is a need.
At the meeting, Pastor Craig just shared what was on his heart in more detail. And he said, more than anything, there's just so much information, so many ways to get to create change and get activated. He just needed a team around him that could help gather that information and process it and get it out to the church.
I need people who can find information for me that's pertinent to us right now. I said, I need people who can vet that information. I need somebody who can create an action plan or a response so that when I get up on Sunday, I can go, here's the information, here's where we found out, and here's what needs to happen. And you guys, here's how we need to respond.
For me, it's easier just to write things out and to try to figure out how we can approach this problem. So I started writing out a rough plan of what it could look like. And essentially what that looked like was breaking up the work that we're trying to do into 3 pieces. So that's a research piece, an action piece, and a communications piece. And so the research piece really focuses on let's get our hands on this information and make sense of it. And then the second piece, to learn about what's going on, but also to see where they can take action. And then the final piece was communications. And this is where we wanted to bring it all together, because we have the information and then we have the actions. So let's get it all in a succinct message that would make sense to everyone. Because we know, like all of us, we're not experts in this. We're just learning as we go. So let's simplify it and make it something that's easy to digest.
From that, we now have a group, about 6 people, myself included as one of them. I'm not always able to attend the meetings, but we came up with a very simple format. We wanted to meet once a month. We would have a special speaker in. Sometimes it was somebody who was a politician, who shared our worldview and could tell us, here's what's happening. Oftentimes we've had somebody like a lawyer in, or a leader from something like Canada Family Action. We had the leader from Parents for Choice in Education. And what we heard from them consistently, and this is where I learned it, they said, we're so delighted that you're doing something because we've been out there by ourselves. We know there's a silent majority, but they are largely uninformed on the issues. And when you're uninformed, you're unengaged. And when you're unengaged, whoever is engaged pretty much carries the day. So we're not conservative or liberal, we're biblical. Who is running for these various offices that most closely resembles our views and values, that most closely resembles as Christians, as Bible-believing Christians, and those are the people that we want to be able to get behind.
So now we have a Citizen Action Group monthly update. So this is an important piece to keep people engaged and to just let them know what's happening at each level of government. First and foremost, I'm there to serve our pastor. The second part is then serving the congregation and getting the information out. The number one piece that was very helpful was setting up a Citizen Action booth. We have our pamphlets and information about what's going on in politics and government. We try to have someone there every Sunday after each of the services. That way they can come and ask questions. If we sent an email, if they have questions about that, or if anything's happening in government and politics, we can help answer questions and build a relationship with the congregation. Because we even have people just wandering up to the booth and saying, oh, what's this all about? I haven't heard about it.
So it's developed into something that our church is being informed. And because of that, our church has begun to become active. We have 1 or 2 people now that are actually on a local riding council. They're involved. I had somebody in my office this week that said to me, I've been praying about this a lot. I feel like I'm supposed to get more involved and I'm actually supposed to run for office. As pastors, we have the responsibility to help our people be salt.
I knew it was the right thing to do to go and vote and share your voice and be heard, but I didn't actually realize that one person could make a difference. I've shifted a lot.
Salt doesn't have an impact until it makes contact. And as Christians, we have to start making contact with our world, with our constituencies, with the nation.
Youth don't necessarily care about politics right now. They care about who's popular, what the music is, what's on TikTok. They don't care about the prime minister. They don't care about the mayor. It doesn't affect them right now. And so if we can create that in our people and help use the Citizen Action Group to say, hey, there's a value for this, and this is how you do that, then when they become voting age, they'll be educated.
The most rewarding part is when I get to see the people that felt that they didn't have the power to make a change, and we said, no, we live in a democracy, this is a great country, and we have an opportunity to speak out for what we believe in and make it an even better place to live.
And I'm not a politician. I'm a pastor, so I don't try and be a politician because it's not my lane. But there are people in my church who have a real heart for that, and they have a heart for social justice and for one of the things that you've mentioned. And so they're training themselves and becoming, I don't know if you'd call us experts, but at least we're informed and engaged. So it's definitely easier for me because I'm not trying to change who I am. What God was able to do was to create something that empowered our people without me having to change and become something else.
Well, it just doesn't get any more exciting than that. When you see people that have real live experiences and you see them advance through the challenges and arrive at a place where they're really achieving levels of success that I think are surprising some of them even. They say that true success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile dream. And I know these people, they have a pretty big dream, and they can see themselves now marching towards success, and they're excited, and I'm excited for them. So now what you just saw, though, just to summarize and make sure we're clear on it, is that video was the introductory video. It's kind of like the 30,000 foot flyover of the Citizen Action Group that they have established, which will be really the training template moving forward. The videos that were used to cobble together that introduction, there's a lot more to them, and we're going to be sharing them on the road ahead. So you're going to hear a lot more from Pastor Craig and about the challenges and some of the opportunities that he experienced. You're going to be hearing a lot more from Damon. We're going to be showing that person who responded to the call and who was sitting in the church and responded to the need of the pastor, and then maybe we'll get some other pastors in the church like Joshua's out there. They'll say, hey, you know what? I didn't think that was really something I needed to pay attention to, but it's really worked out great for me too. So you're going to be hearing more about it. You're going to be seeing the expanded versions on the road ahead. But in the post briefing notes today, I'm going to just include this one segment, the introduction video, because this is what I'd like you to do. If you are a pastor and this is something that has resonated with you, and you say, you know what, as a ministry in my church, this is something that perhaps I haven't thought about before, but I'm going to pray into this. You know, is there room in my church for a ministry citizen action group? Is there something that perhaps I've missed, where there's an opportunity where we can have influence locally and better the lives of our neighbors and have influence in our communities in this area? So please pray into it. Now, if you're not a pastor or a church leader, and you saw this today, then I encourage you to bring this video that you're going to receive in the post-briefing notes, and even the whole, if you want to share the entire national leadership briefing with them, that's fine too, but share this Citizen Action Group segment for sure with your church leadership, and just say, you know, with all respect, I just want to submit this to you for your consideration. Is this a ministry that perhaps we can have in our church, so that as the opportunities come into our lives, as we become aware of the opportunities where we can have influence, we've got this ministry set up to respond and serve not only you as my pastor, but also our church family members and the broader community. So that's my encouragement there for today, is just look for that one introductory video in the post-briefing notes today, and share it and consider it prayerfully. So prayerfully consider that, what we presented today there. Thank you so much. So we'll see more and more on the road ahead. Now, let me just finish up here, because I want to just finish with this final point here. The National Leadership Briefing. The role of the National Leadership Briefing in relation to you. The role here is that as you walk your walk, you know that, first off, you're not alone, because the National Leadership Briefing is connected to thousands of people across the nation who share your views and values. And just by virtue of the fact that we're all here with you, that's got to bring some comfort. But we also want you to actually take advantage of more of the opportunity. The National Leadership Briefing here is also here to serve your personal network and your Citizen Action Group, that ministry that you establish in your church, on the road ahead, because it's our role to continue to scan the horizon for those opportunities where you can have influence. Now, we just came out of one of those opportunities where we brought forward the opportunity to select a leader of a major political party here in Canada. So the National Leadership Briefing, what we do is we launch projects which then serve citizen action groups and personal networks, and then you have something that you can see in front of you and say, okay, we were already rallying together locally around the things that we believe in, but we've also got the National Leadership Briefing here to support our efforts, and that is something we are happy to do. So please, every person that you connect with here, it does you a great service if you plug them into the National Leadership Briefing, because we have, brick by brick, we call it, understandings that are built over time as to who we are, what we're working to accomplish together and what our goals and opportunities are on the road ahead. So that is what I encourage you to do, is always be looking for those registrations, bring people to the National Leadership Briefing, and give us an opportunity to work with you and support you in your local efforts. Okay, so that's all what I wanted to share in the boardroom today. Thank you so much for allowing me to focus on you, because I think you are a pretty exciting subject and topic. So I was happy to do it, but I want to get back to the desk and finish up there, because we are going to launch something called the answer period segments, and it's kind of exciting and something that I've been working on for a little while, because it is responding to a need that you've shared with me in the past. So let's go back to the desk, and I will share that with you, and then we'll wrap up there. Thanks so much. Bye for now.
The question is not if he is happy or satisfied or feeling good about meeting the Ethics Commissioner. Has the Prime Minister met with the Ethics Commissioner? And if so, how many times? Very, very simple.
Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to work with the Ethics Commissioner and Conflict of Interest Commissioner to answer any questions she may have. That's what Canadians expect of the Prime Minister, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
This Prime Minister said he would stand up every Wednesday and answer every question that's being asked of every member on this side of the House, and he fails to do it. He's been asked 5 times today, Mr. Speaker, about the Ethics Commissioner. For the sake of my colleagues, I'll ask it again. How many times? 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 And how many times has he met with the Ethics Commissioner?
Canadians expect clarity, they expect consistently, and when asked the same question, I will give the same answer. That's what Canadians expect.
How many times has the Prime Minister communicated with the Ethics Commissioner? Answer the question.
I will give the same answer. I'm happy to work with the Ethics Commissioner on any questions she may have. And one of the things that I like about Prime Minister's question period is I get to take questions from any MP across the way has their questions, not just the party leaders.
I know that there's some issues in terms of calculation. I'm going to try a different angle. A, was it 0 times did he meet with the Ethics Commissioner? B, was it 1 to 5, or C, 6 to 10?
The fact is, on this side of the House, we are focused on making investments that are going to make a difference in the lives of Canadians.
The Prime Minister was getting tired of pretending to answer the question, so he's decided he just won't even pretend to answer it at all. So I'll ask it one more time. His obligation is to be honest with Canadians. What's he covering up here? How many times has he communicated with the Ethics Commissioner?
Happy to work with the Ethics Commissioner to answer any questions that she might have.
Well, as many of you know, for many years I worked as an assistant to a federal cabinet minister, an employee of the House of Commons, and I had on many occasions the opportunity to watch Question Period, that segment of the day, that part of the day where questions are asked and often they aren't answered, and it gets a little frustrating. And oftentimes, actually, people think that is all that Parliament does, is that they just fire questions back and forth and don't answer them. There is a lot of other work that they do. However, this one segment of the schedule, this called Question Period in the House of Commons, is notorious for unanswered questions. Now, it was my boss who actually pointed out to me, he said, Doug, if it was a place where the answers would be provided, they would have called it Answer Period and not Question Period, but it is just called Question Period. So that is why I wanted to show you that probably somewhat frustrating video, because we here at the National Leadership Briefing always want to be providing answers. And so we're launching a brand new segment called Answer Period here on the National Leadership Briefing. Now, what is Answer Period? Well, let me just first tell you where the need came from. Obviously, here on the National Leadership Briefing, you might notice that it's not interactive to the degree where I can actually take a bunch of questions from people, because there's just so many people that are on each call, and there's just too many questions that would be coming through. So what we've done is we've worked to identify the questions between the briefings and then sort of bring the answers forward. Well, we have responded to that need to answer questions by coming up with this brand new segment called Answer Period. What the Answer Period segment is actually a period in time where we take footage of training segments and answer period segments that we have done in Zoom calls with pastors and churches, and we bring them together and just highlight some of the more popular questions and answers that we have received. Now, let me give you an example here by showing you this video it's kind of a bit of a compilation of some of the Zoom calls that I've done with some selected leaders from across the nation. And then you'll get a sense as to what it is that we actually are going to be presenting in the future. But let's just have a look at this video, and then I'll follow up with you to give you a little bit more information about how we're going to work with this moving forward.
Hey everybody, it's Pastor Renee McIntyre from Trumpet of Truth Christian Ministries in Woodstock, Ontario, and I'm really excited about this interview today. I've asked my friend Doug Sharp to come and speak with us about politics. Hey Doug, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
The first one that I want to ask you is, because this is the big one, so I'm just going to kick it off with the big one. Is it okay for pastors to talk about politics with their congregations?
Okay, that's a great question. And just to maybe put a bit of a definition on the word politics, because that means different things to different people. Some people, the word politics means a bunch of people get in a room and argue about who should win and who should be in power and things like that. But that's not how I view politics at all. Politics to me, and what it actually is, it is simply the process by which we as citizens transfer authority to civil government to act in a beneficial way for the greater good of society. In other words, it's just a process. And that process of politics is one that we can choose to engage in or not. And let's take a look at perhaps some of the reasons why we should engage, because that's really the thing that I'm selling these days is engagement. There's going to be someone in government that is going to be making decisions. Somebody is going to end up at the helm of government and making decisions about the care of our neighbor. And we have great benefit in our Christian faith that we have a history of over 2,000 years now of being able to prove that we can provide positive health outcomes for people when the principles that we believe in are applied in the lives of our neighbors. So if there's going to be a conversation about the care of our neighbor and somebody's going to be making the decisions, and we choose not to engage in the processes of politics to become those people or to influence who those people are, then we're basically leaving all of those decisions up to somebody else about how they're going to care for our neighbor. Now, the problem with that is we're actually called to care about our neighbor.
Sharon, I really want to commend you to our nation and to our viewers. And we want to commend you to our pastors across the nation that if they can't have you, they could have you come this way and help disciple our nation right across the nation of Canada. This is question number one that came to me. How would you encourage young single adults to engage in being a voice with our society and government?
Good question. That is a great question. The first thing I want to say is suggest that you first get straight in your own heart and your head. Answer the question, why? Why would I engage? What is it that's motivating me to engage in society, culture, and politics and government, wherever it is? Because for me, for example, it's Luke 10, verses 25 to 37. I believe that every day when I get out of bed, that my feet land on the road between Jerusalem and Jericho. And on that road, just like in the Good Samaritan, the parable of the Good Samaritan, I believe that I'm going to encounter people that are injured on that road that have been set upon by thieves. So I actually look and scan for what it is that's injuring people. And I discovered in my own life that the decisions in politics and of elected people actually have the capacity to injure people. So that's what motivates me to do what I do. But what's your motivation? Second, I identify those people in your sphere of influence as young people. Reach out to people that might share your views and values and connect with them and say, hey, do you mind if we gather around together around these ideas? And if I see an opportunity where we can connect on them and advance the things that we believe in collectively, can we talk? And get their permission to stay in touch with them, and then align with people outside of your sphere of influence and grow your sphere of influence and the amount of influence you have in the areas that you believe in by getting more and more people around you. Again, it's gathering people around positively expressed ideas that is really going to make the biggest impact. Well, I hope it's obvious to you that that is clearly one of the things that I like doing most about my job, is actually connecting between the National Leadership Briefing with frontline church leaders and pastors and giving them the opportunity to just spend some time and fire away questions. Let's just get some answers and questions out there. So this is something that I do on a regular basis, is that I make myself available to church leaders. If you just want to get on a Zoom call and you want to connect and you've got a list of questions that you want to share with your church family or just for your own, to sharing with your networks, whatever it is that you'd like to do, but we schedule these calls, these Zoom calls, and I'm happy to do it. So first off, let's start there. If you're a pastor or church leader, or you are in a church and you have a pastor or church leader that you think might be interested in this, please consider this my offer. I would just be happy to do that. Obviously, it's time permitting. We try to do as many as we can each week. But if you would like to schedule an answer period segment with me and just set up a Zoom call or a StreamYard or whatever platform you're using, I am happy to come online and just fire away. Let's just get some questions out there. Now, what I ask of you, if you don't mind, is that let's say you have you ask a question on one of those Zoom calls that we're receiving a lot of that same question on the National Leadership Briefing. I'd like to be able to take that question and that answer and make it part of the answer period segment that we broadcast on the National Leadership Briefing at a future time. So that is just something that I thought a way that we could work together is that allow me to serve you in your local church by doing an answer period segment with you over Zoom, and then after, if you'll allow me to mine the actual film footage there. If you have a question that we're finding is quite popular, we'd like to share it with the broader community nationally here on the National Leadership Briefing as part of the answer period segment. So we're excited about that because it's kind of one of those things where I was working with my producer on, we were kind of talking about how this might work. And we said, wait a second, this could serve both needs beautifully, because we do want to bring answers to the National Leadership Briefing participants. And we never want to look like some people look in the House of Commons during question period where there are no answers at all. So please allow us to serve you not only locally with your church family and in your perhaps your citizen action group with the question period, answer period, and then allow us to then use that footage to share with the national audience here on the National Leadership Briefing. Okay, so that information and that clip will be included below, along with my contact information, so you can get in touch with me to schedule an answer period Zoom call with me. So thank you so much for considering that. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for allowing me to focus on one of my favorite subjects, which is, of course, you. And thank you for allowing me to continue to serve you here as the host of the National Leadership Briefing. I look forward to keeping in touch with you on the immediate road ahead during the midweek touch points. Remember, you're going to look for that video midweek, because there's lots of we just touch base for a couple of minutes, but just check it out and then see what we're doing and where we're at, and then go back to your life. And then we'll see you again back on the next National Leadership Briefing in November. But until then, may God bless you. May God continue to bless your family. And of course, continue to bless this great nation of Canada. Bye for now.